Yes, boys, welcome back to another pre-week analysis looking at DXY, dollar index, GBPUSD, EURUSD, and gold. Okay, if we are going to look at anything else, then it will be popped up in the in the chat function, and we can look at it. If not, we will continue as normal. Okay. So starting on the dollar index, looking at what we got last week and where we're at now. You can see that we were range bound between this point of interest, well, in terms of this internal liquidity point being this fair value gap, this bearish fair value gap, and this daily order block. Okay, so we originally came into this order block Monday 3rd, rejected, pushed away, failed to close and break through this fair value gap, and then we came back, bounced, and then coming into NFP Friday, we again came back into this daily order block, but failed to push and close below, basically not accepting lower prices below this region. Okay, so going into next week, put simply, what do we have to do? What do we have to basically go off? Essentially, price is not accepting, or the chart DXY is not accepting prices lower than 99.415 at the moment. Therefore, we could see a price come back into this region. Okay, simply because we're range bound, we could see price come all the way back up into the 100, 100 flat kind of region, to be honest. So we could see that. In terms of mid time frames, we are technically bearish. We are printing, or we have printed a lower low. I am going to expect some sort of retracement, given this is an inefficient kind of data push. We typically see price fill these gaps and rebalance price action. Okay, so we could see a rebalance. We could also just see price completely continue off. Okay, so we could see price, as you can see, I've got these arrows here from the live on Friday with the team, that we could see price basically push lower, get a retest of this zone, and then continue lower, potentially. Okay. What we could also see is this zone completely hold up, potentially break through this region that was previously held, being this bearish fair value gap on the 4-hourly, start heading towards the higher time frame rebalance, which is, if I just zoom out, from this swing high, from this swing low, so the 50% would be this red line here. Okay, so we could see price seek to rebalance this higher time frame swing, which would ultimately send currencies, so Euro USD, GBP USD, gold, essentially bearish as the DXY starts to rally. Okay, so that's what we could see. That's what we could see coming into the week. We have CPI on Wednesday, which will be another key indicator on the driver for price and at least its direction for the coming weeks. NFP, yes, it printed bearish on the dollar, but we failed to break below this kind of area. I do want to see a little bit more confirmation if we're going to continue going bearish on the higher time frame, that is. Otherwise, if we start pushing higher and we get hourly alignment, then we could see price come into these zones, into the 100 flat, and if that holds and breaks higher, then potentially into this higher time frame retracement, rebalance. Okay. So what does that look like on EURUSD? Let's go clear chart. Just I'll remove the indicator. Brilliant. Clear chart. So we can start on the daily. On the daily, we are at an interesting point. Okay, we have had or been aware of this region for a while, which is this order block in price. Okay, bearish order block, which that is a blue zone, that we pushed away from, created expansion and broken structure to the downside, basically right here. Okay, we broke structure here from this high to this low, sweeping internal highs, and now we've come into a daily order block right here. Oh my god, I completely missed. Brilliant. So given order flow, or kind of typical price action when it comes to understanding order blocks, is that we could see a rejection of this order block and price flip bearish and potentially head towards these lows here. Okay, we're going to need kind of significant alignment to trade that on a kind of day trading basis if we're not swing trading, because this is so far away in terms of relative price action. Okay, being on a daily chart and simply saying, okay, we're now at a bearish daily point of interest, I'm now going to take a short on the 5 minute. You know, you're going to get slapped up because there's just too much difference in terms of the size, and the comparison between two time frames is not the same. But when you can align those, then we can potentially catch big moves. So 4 hourly is quite clearly still very bearish. Okay, so in terms of that scenario that we were just mapping there, in terms of the bearish order block, we're going to need at least a break of structure on the 4 hour, which would be this low in here. So if we do get a 4 hourly break through here, back up and lower, then that could be our first step at aligning with the daily in terms of potential narrative to shift bearish. Okay, and just to explain why that would be the break of structure, we've got this low to this high to this lower, higher low to this higher high, which means if we were to break this, we'd be creating a new lower low. Okay, we would then anticipate the high lower high to be formed, where we would then potentially look at aligning on the hourly, the 15, to then take a short. Okay, so I can leave that there as an option, option one. Another option for price is to continue trading higher. Okay, so we're continuing to make bullish price action in terms of creating high highs and high lows. We could see this completely rebalance in terms of this 4 hourly swing coming into, or we are already coming into at least, this bullish fair value gap. We could see this fill completely, potentially, which would head us to the extremes, which would also be not very favorable given how close we are then to the ultimate low. And there's not much of an order block in here, so we'd be trading off of a gap, which I'm not massively fond of, given that gaps typically get filled. But if this does fill with a wick, hypothetically speaking, then that could be a good indication that sellers are not strong enough in this region. Buyers are basically picking up momentum, and we could potentially look to get long, given that this gap would be filled and it would be an efficient move in price. Okay, on the hourly, just to show what that could look like. Obviously, I just marked out this would be an inverse fair value gap that has been untested. So I'd be looking at seeing price come into here, waiting for extra confirmation, which would be something like this, to then get long. Okay, I'll be waiting for a really clear indication that price is ready to break bullish, and it would be like so. Okay, so a sweep of liquidity to the lows, inducement, whatever you want to call it, followed by a market structure shift or an indication in momentum shifting, to then catch an entry on a retracement, and essentially targets the previous week highs. That would be my go-to. However, we are also conscious that we're in a daily point of interest to potentially go bearish. Okay, so that is what I'm looking at on EURUSD. It looks horrible when I shift out of time frames. So EURUSD would be basically trading from this point of interest away. And for GBPUSD, GU cable, whatever you want to call it, that chart looks hectic. However, it's got everything I need on it. Perfect. So we'll start on the daily on GU for a change. As you can see, it's relatively messy, but it's got everything we need on it, so we're going to roll with it. As you can see, the GBPUSD has been pushing relatively bullish for, well, it was at least for last week. Then we started to stall coming into NFP, and then we got that push. Okay, so we've had that push higher. However, we have not pushed higher than this low here. Whereas, or have we just? Looks like we've got triple tops. Okay, so triple kind of equal tops there, which look like they're probably going to get taken out. I mean, equal highs are very. Am I tripping? I am tripping. That high did get taken out. Admit. So this high did get taken out. However, we are still bullish, and we have this pool of untapped liquidity, this inefficient price action between this high, or this candlestick's high, to this low, where we could see price completely fill and potentially mitigate the data lows put in from Friday's NFP, which would rebalance price and potentially allow us to get a view of what the most accepted price is, to then potentially look higher, or to get confirmation that price is going to go lower. Okay, so we have this order block as well already marked out, as you can see. So this order block would be from here, so from this bearish candle before the push higher, that we could see price come all the way back into. So filling this inefficiency, trading away from an order block, and then getting long, waiting obviously for lower time frame confirmation, and essentially targeting the previous week highs again. Okay, so just mark out our previous week high. And on our hourly chart, just so that you can see what it looks like for reference, we essentially were well, price action in terms of the battle between buyers and sellers was relatively equal. As you can see, we were essentially accumulating. Price action or volatility completely dropped off before we got that push to the downside, which was not respected, did not hold. NFP then printed bullish, and we had people jumping in, participants jumping in long positions, which ultimately pumped the market. Okay, so now we're looking to see if that is going to hold, and if we can see it essentially as an opportunity to continue getting long, or for price to fail and CPI to potentially print in the opposite direction, which would be a bit annoying, or not annoying, but we'd roll with it. But it would just mean more accumulation. Okay, so we've got more conflicting fundamentals essentially. So if this region doesn't hold, this is the question. If this order block doesn't hold and we potentially flip bearish, so that would kind of indicate that on the hourly we'd be flipping bearish. So in terms of our day trading bias, we could potentially be looking to get short after that confirmation. We'll be looking to trade towards these points of interest to the downside, which you can see in blue here. Okay, so we'll be looking to, I believe this is a fair value gap. We have an order block. Okay, so the next region that we could see price come to, if this fails, would be here, given that we have this build up of liquidity, these lows off the back of Tuesday last week. We could see this tapped. We could see this order block retested again. And if that fails, then we have another order block in here, filling this inefficient price action between this low, this high and this low here. And then we have more inefficient price action lower between this high and this low here. So lots of space for price to potentially kind of step down, understanding where it could potentially hesitate at, being these areas. And potentially we could then get a push like so. Okay. Oh, a bit too much. But I'm not going to jump into those scenarios in terms of making decisions based on that. But it's just something I'm aware of. If we do flip bearish, then I know where I'm going to be targeting next. Okay. So for XAUUSD, aka gold, as you can see, I've marked out this accumulation in this green box, essentially, assuming that we, or potentially speculating that we could see price manipulate to the downside and then push higher, okay, if we were going to get long. Instead, what we got was fair price in terms of, or equal buyers and sellers for a while in terms of relative to this time frame, where we did not pick a lower price or higher price. We essentially remained range bound. Price act or volatility dropped off, and then we got that injection of liquidity and injection of volatility based on fundamentals, based on NFP, which ultimately drove price higher. So now we're at a region where price has previously stalled, where we are currently stalling. So the question now is, do we hold this region or do we fall? Okay, so previously price fell, but we are currently bullish, so we could see price continue higher. And if it does go higher, where are we looking? So we do have these highs up here, which look quite enticing. So we could have this as a area to target in terms of not necessarily holding a trade all the way to, but in terms of being aware of where price could navigate towards. because up here we do have inefficient price action, okay, just above. So the price is going to look to seek rebalance drawn towards those areas, okay. We also have inefficiency just here with an order block sat above it. I'm going to mark this inefficiency out like so. So price could look to come up, push through, and then fill this gap, tapping into this order block, potentially selling off from there, potentially. So we could see price come down before we get something else potentially, or we could see price fill, try push lower, sellers don't quite gain the momentum they need, and then we push higher into these higher points of interest, okay, potentially. Just, again, speculating and not necessarily on something I'm going to trade off, but understanding that where we do get confirmation, where I can potentially see price going after that. So if we hold where we are at the moment, you can see that price has essentially stalled at an area that it has historically stalled at, as you can see to the left here. We do have an order block, which we come into. We have closed. We have closed into that order block though, and pretty much come above it, just in here. I'm not going to make guesses or speculate too aggressively on what I think it's going to do next, but my gut's kind of telling me this is not going to hold, and we could potentially come higher before next week's sell-off. Obviously, we have CPI on Wednesday, which is going to be a big driver for price, which means we could see a little bit of, again, kind of low volume conditions into CPI. We could then get that push in either direction. But if we do hold this area, the price could come and get that distribution all the way to the downside. Seeing that we had the accumulation, we didn't get a manipulation to the downside, we got a push to the upside. And gold has been bearish for the longest, so potentially we could see a distribution lower. And when we zoom out and we see how bearish we've been on the lead up, then it's not necessarily too much to ask for. It's not too unreasonable to potentially suggest that we see this level retested again. However, currently we are very bullish, okay? So just again, if we are going to see that distribution, waiting for that higher time frame and mid time frame alignment before executing on said ideas. But again, bullish on across currencies, bearish on the dollar, and we are conscious that we could see price ultimately flip, given that we're respecting these lows on DXY. EURUSD is in a very prime position in terms of reacting from this daily order block. We could see a break of structure to the downside, which would indicate a potential, which would indicate sell side pressure on a higher time frame, and therefore we'd be waiting for extra confirmation to then, or the final confirmation to then get short and have that higher time frame narrative completely switched. Okay, so I'll leave it there. Hopefully this is a good week of trading. I hope you all have a good week of trading. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. Feel free to DM me on Instagram. Feel free to reach out to me in whatever way you need to. And yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you next week for the next week's live.